Welcome back to Beyond the Protocol, the series where we explore the realities of navigating a career in clinical research and operations during these uncertain times. I'm Dan Schell, the chief editor of Clinical Leader, and I'm here with my co host, Sandra Warren. Sandra?
Thanks, Anne. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today, we're excited to be talking with Susan Swonger. She brings a greater experience as a clinical research coordinator in electronic child master files. She did, her been through her own career transitions and had some practical insight for all of it. Susan, thank you for being here. To start off, could you share a little bit about your journey and what brings you into clinical research and how you transitioned between roles like CRC and in working with the child master file?
Sure. Um, like I said, I kind of fell into this. I was working at a psychiatric hospital. I was a case manager and had a caseload of 30 plus patients with chronic bipolar disorder, chronic schizophrenia. And I met the director of nursing who was leaving to open a clinical research site. And she liked me. And she asked me if I would come on board as her psychometrician. So, under the guidance of a neurologist, he trained me to perform the psychiatric test for those studies. And then a coordinator left, and I filled in her role. And I've been doing that pretty much ever since. I didn't want to transition to a CRA because I had children and I didn't want to travel 70% for my job. So I started consulting and I took an ETMF course through Nicole Miller. So I'm doing ETMF regulatory right now for a cancer study. And I like it.
And right now you don't have a job?
No, I do. I'm doing the ETMF for a cancer study.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. And so that's really good context. So we hear from a lot of professionals about career setbacks
Mhm.
and how that can be difficult after layoffs, which I think most of the people that are going to watch this, and both of you have probably experienced that. When you have faced challenges or transitions in your career, what practical strategies helped you bounce back? What did you do?
Well, I reached out to the monitors that I'd worked with in the past for studies and asked if they had any openings at their, if they were CRO or a
Sure.
sponsor, if they had any friends, or contacts I could do, or a recruiter that I could contact. And usually they sent me a recruiter or a contact that I could go to. And a lot of those did turn out for jobs. And then I went on Indeed and looked for jobs on Indeed, started networking. And that's really where it all started.
Hmm. Okay. A lot of the
Wait,
standard
wait,
stuff that we would
wait,
expect.
pause a second, real fast. You say that Nicole, somebody else, not it's Nicole.
Oh, sorry, Palmer. It's
Yeah.
not Miller. Oh my gosh, you're right, it's Palmer.
That's all right. We can keep us in. Yeah. We all know
Okay,
Nicole Palmer. We knew who you
okay,
were talking about.
Okay.
all right. Well, just
I
wanted to
should
make
should
sure.
have said Miller. I was thinking of the pocketbook girl. Oh, Miller, designer.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sandra.
Well, I love that you bring such a hands-on perspective, and thank you again for sharing that. For those who have been at CRCs and working with TMS, what advice do you have highlighting like some transferable skills and trying to move into a broader clinical operations or sponsor level roles? What would you recommend to them?
I would recommend, of course, your GCP, good clinical practice. You should get certified in that. Um, the clinical harmonization, ICH, you should have that. If you have any other clinical training as far as city training would be transferable if you're going into a coordinator role or if you're going to a CRA, they have that for both. I would do that. Any training that you can find either on the web or through a program would be transferable to a role in clinical research. So I would advise that you soak up as much as you can with that. Dan Sefra or Safara has tons of videos on YouTube on getting into the clinical research industry, and I watch them all. Really.
Good.
And they're all great, even for people that have been in the industry 20 plus years. So I'd recommend you watch all those videos, absorb all you can, reach out to your contacts.
When
That's
you
the way
talk
to do
about
it.
all those skills and those accreditations, I'm just curious, are you posting those? Do you mean post those on your LinkedIn or making sure that everybody knows
Making
those
sure that they
that you
have them, period. They need them. If they wanna get in the industry, it would be a good idea to have them
okay,
and
gotcha.
post them on LinkedIn too. Yes.
Okay, just
Mhm.
being clear there. Got it.
Well, for anyone that's feeling discouraged, and I, for one, Facebook, that, I've been looking for a job and it's, been discouraging, and so what's one a piece of advice of encouragement or advice, you would want to give someone like myself? Could you recommend something?
Keep the chin up for one. There's a lot of people out there right now that are out of a job and, I've been laid off and without a job and it hurts. You're applying and you're not getting feedback. It's all computer now. You're not getting rejection letters. Like before you could go to the mailbox and be like, oh, I didn't get it. And now they're even not even sending letters or they're not even sending you an email back. It's really tough. Um, don't get discouraged. There's always a job out there for somebody. Always. I mean, even if you can't get the role that you're looking right at, go for a role that might be in the same industry, but maybe not as much money as you wanted because it's a start. Get your foot in the door and go from there.
Stay in the industry.
Yes, stay in the industry and just get your foot in the door and work. And then when you're in that position, you'll meet other people. You'll be talking to other people from different companies, and then you might find your way into another role
Yeah, we've heard
that you find more rewarding.
Many professionals are worried about, resume gaps and after layoffs and stuff like that. How have you approached your own career, Susan? And what advice would you give to others?
Well, with resumes and stuff, I gotta tell you, I got spammed on, of all places, Indeed. I applied for a job. I had an interview. They sent me paperwork. I signed a contract. Um, I even they asked me to do some promotional work that I sent for them so they could get an idea of what it was like. And it turned out to be a total hoax, complete hoax. Yeah.
What was
Here,
the
here,
And
stop that.
the company was online and the girl was online, but that's not who I had been speaking to. It wasn't her picture. It was
Well,
somebody totally different.
I know I hear about
but-
these scams.
Yeah, and I
What's
can't
the
believe
goal?
it me. I mean, I'm pretty old and I fell for it. So,
But well, well, to say is, share that story. I think a lot of people don't know. I think I shared with Dan or in our previous episode. When I was at my last job, that they asked me to kind of show this guy, kind of train him, show him the ropes of what, how things are. Supposedly, he was a CRA and he had no idea what a 157, or he called it a 1572. Okay. Not see, I shared that with Dan and you, and I was just like, what? And it's going to be
everybody should know what a 1572 is. Yeah, even if it's called 1572. Yeah, even if it's that, you know what it is if you're in the research industry.
well, and he calls it a 1572, or he said, "What's a IND?" I think I told you about that too. And I'm like, "What?" And immediately I knew he was a fraud. But how he got that is beyond me. And the more recruiters I'm talking to, in fact, I talked to a recruiter today, and she's telling me that they were expecting. I'm just making this up. They're expecting you to show up, at the job, and I come in, blonde hair, the brown hair, and stuff like that, and they're like, "Who's this?" And why did she here? So that someone comes in completely different than the person they, spoke to. And it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's like fraud on both ends. It's on the
Really?
person who is applying, but then the one I don't understand is what happened to you, Susan, is, like, what's the end goal of those people making you go through all those hoops? I mean, is it somehow at the very end to say, "Okay, you're hired, give us your bank account information?" Like, I don't get that.
I forgot that part. I forgot that part. Yes, they told me they were gonna send me a check for a computer and a scanner. Yeah, 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 yeah.
God,
And so I got the check, right? And I'm like, this isn't cool. This is not how this works. So the check was a fraud. I went to my bank and of course it was a fraud. So I don't know what they wanted me to do after I cashed that check, which wasn't cashed.
right.
So I
Have
just completely called my bank, called everybody, credit cards, everything, and just blocked everything.
I was gonna say, did you just block them? You didn't get back to
Yeah.
them at all?
And they kept trying to get in touch with me. I'm like, I'm not interested. Don't
Yeah.
contact me again. And I really don't know what they wanted, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, we hear that all the time. I should say, you read about it all the time, especially on Reddit, all these
Yeah.
horror stories of recruiters that, you know, or like Sandra, you and I had talked about the last time, like all of the different types of video interviews that you've done, or where you're not even interacting with someone, you're just what answering questions. Is that what the deal is? Or
Basically, yeah, or yeah, and then you have to, it's all computers, all AI,
yeah,
and
right, right, right.
you know,
And that was part of mine too, I never had a formal interview with in person. So,
I don't know. It's just, networking can feel intimidating. So what's worked for you in the building authentic professional connections? I mean, I know that you and I, that's how originally,
right, that's how we met. Mhm.
yeah, that's how I met Dan. You can't be shy when looking for a job, and so when you looked at me and I looked at you and I saw that you had greater experience like, I do. I thought, there's not many of us here. Let me reach out.
No, there's not. And now they want you to be a PhD
Hmm.
or something
Yeah.
for a rater position. But, I mean, I've been trained under a neurologist. I mean, I know those scales up and down, you know.
I know of it,
Yep.
so
So,
When you both say a rater position, tell me, what does that mean? I apologize because I am not from the clinical trials industry originally.
yeah, whatever you want to take that.
I guess we both can. Basically, I'm summarizing this. I'm dumbing it down, but basically, say, Dan, you come into your doctor referred you to me, and so you come in, and so you said, "I'm not sure why I'm here. I'm having some memory issues, and blah blah blah." So I give you some psychological tests, and long story short, after all said and done, say your results come out with a 68. Just making this up obviously on the fly. And then I say, Dan, come back in about a month and let's retest you. So this was a longitudinal study that I was doing. And it was you know, a rater or psychometrist or psychometrician. And anyway, bottom line, so then you come back and now your scores are like 32. Well, done. Man, talk to me. What's going
Got it.
on?
Okay.
So I'd be kind of interviewing you and your caretaker or whatever, trying to figure out what's going on. So I'd just kind of be following you, trying to see we can help you with your memory and if at all possible. So why does the things I was working with people had Alzheimer's, dementia, Lou Gehrig's disease, etc. And Susan was looking at me and I was looking at her. And so we just decided to connect because like I said, there's not many of us here. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Wonderful.
during the Alzheimer's trials when I first started at that site. And it was incredible. Some people would come in, one of the tests is you write your name, you draw a clock. And this woman, she happened to be probably 54. Um, and she came in, her name was Susan, and she'd write Susan, and then she'd write her last name. And then maybe like 6 months down the road, yeah, she'd go S-U, and then she'd stop. And as a rater, you can't say anything. You're just watching. She couldn't finish her name. She couldn't remember.
Wow.
wow. You never told
Ye
me that story. Wow, wow.
Yeah.
So that's
Really sad.
so that's different than like a CRC wouldn't have that role.
No.
No.
Totally
No.
different. Okay. All right.
No.
Yeah. And I'm glad you dumbed that down because I like to ask dumb questions. That's perfect. Okay.
There's no dumb questions in
You know what? Exactly. There's no dumb questions, ma'am.
I mean, I've been in this industry now, focused on it for a year and a half, almost 2 years, and I swear I learn a new acronym every day. So, uh,
Oh, don't even get me started.
Don't even get into the acronyms, please. Sandra and I just learned probably 5 in the last 2 months. Yeah.
yeah.
It's not less than that. I mean,
You just keep continuing.
Hmm.
Mhm.
same thing with, you look at somebody on LinkedIn and they have a job title and you're like, what is that? Never seen that, And so
Yeah.
me, being inquisitive, I look it up. I'm like, wow, what is that? And it's just mind boggling how much things have changed. And it's just crazy. And then add AI to the mix. So
Sure. Yeah. Well, go ahead, Jennifer. You were
no, I
saying
was
something.
just gonna say, because technology, is changing so much. What do you see in the future with the TMF or AI or stuff like that?
You're asking me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Susan. Sorry.
Okay. Well, with the ETMF, it's electronic. Usually when you had a regulatory binder, we're going to go back, 15, 20 years, it was all paper and everything was, filtered and you had tabs for everything you needed. And now it's all online and it's pretty easy. I wouldn't say it's hard to go into the ETMF. You're just logging everything into specific folders and keeping everything updated and on task for the trial. I think it should get better. I think AI might make it more efficient if it's done correctly. Just there's so many companies out there right now that are trying stuff. So it's really going to come down to a sponsor liking what they see in a certain firm. I don't know why they don't all collaborate with the same entity to make it
Right.
easier for CRC. I've had to log into and watch so many videos to learn a new EEC system. And, you have to have a password for that one. Then you go to another study and it's a password for that one. And, it doesn't make my job any easier.
Sure.
No.
So I
Well,
hope
when I was doing it, go on,
Go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I could say when I was doing it, yeah, it was totally paper, and
Yeah.
just when I was just about to leave, then they started electronic. So it a little is,
Yeah.
obviously I know how to file things, but it is a little intimidating.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
there are certain things you have to learn. Like with FIBA Vault, they have a whole system, and you have to obviously train for that and learn that. And it's not difficult, but it does require training.
Sure.
So
And speaking of training, just go back to Nicole Palmer for a minute because we all love Nicole Palmer. We all
yeah,
know her.
nothing
I
cool.
mean, so the types of training that you took from her were to build up your resume, to build that
Yeah,
specifically
it's
for
like
the
those I
ETMF?
needed something else just to boost me up.
Oh, okay.
Everybody has a clinical research resume, blah, blah, blah. But I wanted to add something else to it that might, catch somebody's eye. So I took
Yeah.
her ETMF specialist course, and it was fantastic. And I had never known anything about ETMF, so it really broadened my experience. And I had the internship where I actually worked on metadata Rave, and
Yeah.
learned that. And I had used Rave in the past at a previous study, but just kind of connected everything together and put something else on my resume that might, somebody might spot and say, "Oh, she's good at TMF." Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, go back for a minute too, and when you were talking about being a CRC, and
Mhm.
we are kind of talking about improving your chances at getting a job, building your resume, adding more things on. So
Mhm.
when you're a CRC, you build a lot of transferable skills, I would imagine. So what if you want to move into that next level, which is what? ClinOps, some type of broader ClinOps position or something? Like, what do you do? How do you position yourself for those types of things? Is it continue to take these types of training courses? Is it,
I
like,
would.
when do you know you're ready to take that next step? Is it just experience?
I think when you're ready, when you're getting kind of bored with what you're doing, or you're not getting like CRC, they don't give you a pay raise like every year. It's not that kind of job. So you go in and you get that set salary, and maybe you want to make some more money, and maybe you're getting tired of being patient facing, or maybe you're just tired of the paperwork, the computer period. You want something different. So I would suggest talking to people that you know on LinkedIn, talking to the staff. And again, your monitors are really, or CRAs are somebody to really talk
Hmm.
to see how they jump into it. And there
Sure.
are courses now for CRAs. Dan
Yeah.
has an academy. There's a bunch of them out there now that you can do just to get that experience.
It's funny when I talk to people like you and even Sandra, like, one thing I've learned is CRAs can be your best friend, but they can also be a pain in your butt, right?
Well,
And
if you're a bad CRC, then yeah, they're going to be a pain in
indeed.
the butt
Yeah.
because they want what they want when they want it.
Right, right.
And
And
you should
because
know
they
that
have
as a CRC.
everything's flowing downhill onto them as far as, all the people are emailing them saying, we need this, we need this, we need this. But
And they need it immediately.
yeah,
Need it now.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
no,
always hear that.
right now.
And they're
Yeah.
getting that from their line manager is what
Right.
they're getting. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Just be prepared, be honest, If you don't have it ready, be honest, tell them, I've tried to get this done for you before you came, but I haven't addressed it. Can we do it when you're here? And then you can check it and we can be done with it. Sometimes that works out really well.
But they can be a good referral source
Oh,
also is what you're telling us.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, yes. Because they know tons of CRAs and different, they go to conferences too.
Sure.
And when you're CRC, you'll go to an investigator meeting, you'll meet all kinds of people and you network at those meetings too. Yeah, you're with a company and you're there representing them, but it's a good time to meet other people.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
And if we're doing like a CRC, a certification course, either through ACRP or with SOFRA, that's a great time to meet people and network. and see how they got to where they went. There's just tons of ways to do it.
Lots of networking opportunities, especially with the
Yes.
fall conference season coming up.
Yeah.
SCRS is coming up real soon, right after we talked about on this conversation. So yeah, are you planning on any conferences coming soon or?
It depends on my contract and what I'm
Yeah.
doing. I'd like
Right.
to. Some of them have been, just across the state, and with the plane fare and the hotel fare, I couldn't do it
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah, I
So at the
gotcha.
time there was one like Mensa, I was doing a study that I couldn't leave. I was seeing patients, so I couldn't leave. Yeah. It just all depends. But I do like going to them. They're a great, great way to meet people.
Sure.
Because we're such a small industry, that's why I really try to talk to people,
Yeah.
when not just connect with people, and that's why I did, ask both of you guys, let's talk, let's not just connect, because it's too
Mhm.
easy, and it's too easy to get lost in the shuffle. So I always really try to talk to people, and kind of do what we're doing now, by interviewing and what made you want to get into clinical research and, sharing their story. Some people say they just kind of fell in this industry. Well, nothing I shared with, well, I know I shared with you, Susan. I can't remember if I shared with you, Dan. But for me, it's a personal thing. I lost
Yeah.
my mom when it was. Did I tell you that in Dan already?
You did. That's all right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's just I lost my mom when I was 23. She was 46, and so it's a personal thing. I mean, that
Right.
is my why. And that's why I'm trying to stay in. But it's been the worst year, and that's why I reached out to Dean. I said, "Hey, what do you can I talk to you about, job opportunities?" And we were talking, "Hey, I got a crazy idea. What do you think about the idea?" And hence what,
Yeah.
right now, what we're talking about, and that's what.
It's funny, we keep talking about talking, right? We keep talking about, like,
Yeah.
Sandra, you just threw that out, that conversation. In that conversation, you said, I like to go out and I talk to people, but I might be dating myself here and I may sound like an old boomer, as people call me, but, I'm 60 years old. My kids are, in their late 20s. I know from their generation talking to people is not the first priority for them. It is
No, it's a
email or
stupid
text,
phone.
right? And
Yep.
it's almost like they're afraid to talk to people. And I know when even they were younger in their early 20s, they would say, "Oh, I don't want to bother that person." Like in your point, Sandra, I want to get someone on the phone and ask them, "Hey, I just want to see what it's like about in your job, or do you have any recommendations for me?" That's hard to do for,
Mhm.
I think, that generation, rather than, "I'm just gonna send them a text or I'm gonna email them." But it's so important, like you said, because I know this sounds obvious, but you're building those connections through that,
Yeah.
conversation rather than through a screen, and
Absolutely.
so, I mean, again, I apologize to everybody who's younger. So
Absolutely. Well, then, with these interviews, I feel like I'm being interrogated instead of just a normal conversation that, like, the three of us are having right now. And I don't think that generation, is they're ready for that or they know how to do that. That they depend on AI too much. ChatGPT this, ChatGPT that, and that's it's just very, very, but, for some, people, networking can be intimidating,
Mhm. Yeah.
and, I've always found it just, I don't find it intimidating because I just feel
Right.
like I'm just getting to know somebody, So, I don't know.
What
That isn't
Sandra told me about informational interviews that she does with people, and I thought that was very interesting. That's another way that somebody who wants to get into clinical research, who might have a little experience or no experience, can find out what the job is about.
explain that to me.
Yeah, tell them when I told you about informational interviews.
Wow, Sandra, it's your thing.
Here
Basically, what it said, you're trying to get information. Now, you're not asking for a job, okay? Let me emphasize that. You're not asking for a job. You're just trying to, like I did with you, Dan,
have a
what I did with
conversation.
Steve Tippett, just have a conversation,
Yeah.
so you can get to know them so they can get to know you and you build that relationship because, you don't know who they are. They don't know who you are. And so hopefully over time, you develop that relationship and maybe hopefully if you do see a job, they can refer you.
Link of you, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do that through LinkedIn, and did you message them?
I do. I do that quite a bit,
Mhm.
So, I do the best I can, but, here I am looking for a
When I
job.
when I see on Reddit all these horror stories
Um,
of these interviews, like Sandra, you just talked about like an interrogation type of interview, and there always has been that element of any type of interview, but what have you each seen over the past 2 years, I'll say, 3 years, whatever, that has changed in the interview process? We brought up the whole video interview, like, you're not even talking to anybody because
Yeah.
I see these posts on Reddit about this recruiter wasn't even listening to me. They didn't even understand what clinical research was,
Mm.
or I had to go through some type of special process. And, I think last time, Sandra, you and I talked about the difference between um, what was Katie done? Talent acquisition
yeah.
as
Right.
compared to a recruiter, and then it compared to an HR person. And sometimes it seems like people think they've got the right person and they're communicating with them, and then they find out this is not the right person, and I have to
Exactly.
go down some other path or process. I mean, what has changed over the past few years that you 2 have seen and been like, "Wow, that was difficult," as far as the interview process?
Well, first thing that comes to mind for me is ghosting. That's a new word, about ghosting. Now, I know I get it, I understand it, but it takes 5 seconds to I'll use you as an example.
Yeah.
Y it takes 5 seconds to say, "Susan, hey, thanks, but no thanks." That way I
Yeah.
had closure, you had closure. But I understand they're slammed. I get it. I understand it, but it's just been difficult, with that and then just trying to you don't wanna look too hungry, but you don't wanna look too desperate. It's all this fine line stuff, and it's just been I don't know.
Sure.
I
Nicole contacted me and said she had a recruiter that contacted her that was looking for somebody to do ETMF contract work, which would be great for me. And so she contacted me, and then I talked to the recruiter, great, and then she connected me with the dude that was looking for the job. And we had an interview on the phone, and then my point to this was what?
we were talking about how ghosting and stuff like that.
I know what it was. Sorry.
Yeah.
I sent him a thank you note for the interview. And the next time I spoke with him, he's like, wow, I don't get these very often. Thank you.
Hmm.
People just don't use the pleasantries anymore.
Yeah.
They're not
Yeah.
introducing themselves. They're selling themselves, but you need to introduce yourself, tell yourself a little bit about the job, and then you need to follow it up with a thank you for the interview.
Yeah.
You know,
Follow-up.
People
most
don't
artists
do
did.
that.
Yeah, they don't do it anymore. Yeah. So I've noticed a lot of that. And then I've also noticed where I've had a telephone interview, then I had a Zoom interview, and then I had another Zoom interview with more people on the team, and then I had an interview in person with the entire team. And they sent me a thing back saying that they had changed the job. They didn't get the funding, they changed the job, and now they're looking for this, and that. Well, I wasn't qualified for that, and the other. So that
Right.
just wasted 2
Yeah.
months of my time. 2 months with just that one
Sure.
hospital looking for
But
a job.
those are the types of things that I read about, and I
Yeah.
think that those are
Very
specific to our
frustrating.
industry, because they may have lost the trial, they may have lost
Right.
their funding.
Mhm.
It seems like to me, especially with some of the posts that I've seen where it's, they forgot to post it internally, and then,
Oh,
"Oh,
right.
sorry, we already put this," and, so, like, that might be a question to ask, if you're,
Yeah.
"Hey, is this gonna be posted internally?" Yeah, and, um, but, yeah, I mean, there's so many different variables that can affect it, but then also these techniques that they're using for interviewing are very different, and, I'm sure that there are classes out there that people can take and to prepare for interviewing today and, what to expect, but, um, there's always gonna be those ghosting, there's always gonna be those
Yeah.
scammers, these days, which is crazy, and there's always gonna be you talked about the group, interview.
Mhm.
Eventually you are gonna probably be more people are gonna be on that Zoom call than just
Yeah.
you and the recruiter, and, you know, even over the years and the hiring processes that I've been involved with here, we would bring in a bunch of people. The
Right.
key is to educate those people to say, "Hey, this person on the other end, they are taking time out of their day. Like,
Yeah.
pay attention,
Mhm.
don't sit there because 'cause I've read some of these they say people are so disinterested, and then they look up from their phone and, "Oh, yeah."
Even be in there.
Exactly, right, and you can tell, like, they've been told you have to be in this call to see whether or not you like this person, they're gonna be part of this team. Well, pay attention then. I mean, it's on both sides, I guess, is my point. It's not just on the, person who is the applicant, so.
I have to be
It is.
very, very good.
I was just gonna say it's a different world, and you either have to swim in it or you drown, basically, and you just have to go with the punches. So I just don't take anything personally when I don't hear back. I always yelled at this Susan because we talk quite frequently.
We talk quite a bit.
And I tell her next, I just don't take it personally anymore. I mean, yeah, it still stings a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you, but if I don't hear back or whatever reason that I'm not selected, next, next. I just
Yeah.
Stand up and move on. Yeah.
They didn't dance to
Another
that. Yeah.
I had another job interview with another hospital for a position as a coordinator. Um and we got all the way through. I went for one interview with the HR lady, another interview with the doctor and maybe the office manager, and then another interview they called me while I was at work and I left work to go to because they had other positions for me to meet. We pushed back salary notes. I got the salary I wanted. And then they lost their funding. And this is before the new administration and all this stuff happened. They just lost their funding.
Yeah.
And I'm very wary to apply for jobs now that have funding or, maybe additional 6 months, but we're not sure. I'm very wary now.
Well, and that's a question to ask, right? In this
Yeah.
age, where is your funding coming from? Are you government funded?
Sure.
If it's an AMC, for sure, you want to ask them,
Right.
how long has this been? Has any of these cuts affected you so far? That type of thing. So,
a
um,
lot of people don't have those questions.
no,
Right. Right.
no, yeah.
Is it sponsor initiated? Is it investigator initiated? There's the
Yep.
whole, you got to find out. Yeah.
Where is the growth? Where's the opportunities for growth, do you think, Susan, in research careers? Are there areas people should be focusing on right now to kind of stay competitive, or is it all CRAs? Is it CRCs? Is it all across the board? And do you have any inkling?
I mean, the industry is always going to grow. It depends on whether you want to work for a sponsor or whether you want to work for a site. Are you a people person or are you a sponsor person where you're learning about the drug and you're
Mhm.
going to the sites to make sure they're doing everything correctly?
You skip
Or you
CRO.
take right, or I mean, right. So it depends. If you work with a sponsor, there's tons of growth for you there.
Mm.
Starting as a maybe an in-house CRA, then you go to a CRA, and then maybe you want to pop up into management. Be a clinical trial manager, and then there's more and more and more to grow.
Yeah.
Um, you might be able to do that in a hospital. If you're a CRC, and then maybe you're a trial manager, and then maybe you're the whole person for that portion being I don't know. There's just tons of jobs, but there's always some place to grow.
Yeah.
Room to grow. You just have to look for it.
Well, that's I'm trying to hang in here.
I know. I know.
Both you guys
Yeah.
know.
Yep.
I'm trying to hang in there and just, they say it's about numbers, so I'm just trying to wait it out and just like, come on, let's go, let's go.
Well, and one of the things that appealed to me about your situation, Sandra, is that, you have been out of it for so long and you've told us like, "Hey, I need to get a job in some way, shape, or form, I wanna stay in clinical research." And we see this all the time, right? People saying, "It was a year and a half, it was 2 years. I had to take a job in retail or do something else or switch my careers." And, we all know, especially when it comes to CRCs who are super overworked and, that's a difficult job. Even PIs, you're seeing fewer of those people being in this industry, and we can't afford to keep losing people. And I think that was one of the impetus for you and I to talk and create this series. So,
Absolutely.
we just wanted to keep talking to people like you, Susan, and, hopefully give people hope, give people ideas, actionable information that they can do. To
And
hopefully,
also and also to realize that we're not alone in this. I
No,
think a
no,
lot of
no.
yeah,
people because
And I was
well, I was gonna say because now a lot of times there is a lot of there's not as much, but we're still doing a lot of remote jobs. or a hybrid, and we never get to talk to anybody but anymore. I call it the invisible touch. I mean, a patient could pass right by me and I would never know because I don't see anybody anymore. I never
Right.
really get, so I really try to, like I said, when I'm connected with with you two, I really try to get to know who you guys are. So, when that time comes, hopefully you'll remember me and I'll remember you because it's such a small industry. Might as well try to help
It
each other as
is.
much as we can, you know, and feel like I'm not alone. And
And I also
so,
wanted to say, Dan, about the CRCs is I've been at both places. I've been at a site where the coordinator just does the study,
Mhm.
responsible for the study, responsible for the medication. And then I've been at sites where I had to be certified for phlebotomy. So I took a phlebotomy course and now I'm certified.
Yes.
So not only am I doing the CRC duties, I'm doing the blood work, which you draw the blood, then you have to spin the blood, then you have to package the blood, and then you have to
Right.
take it at shit. Those that adds hours to my work. Hours
Yeah.
that when
But
doing the regular part, I didn't have before. And then yeah.
it also strengthens your resume, though.
It does.
You
It
know.
does. Yeah. So I say to those people, if you're looking for a job, ask them if that's part of their CRC role.
Yeah.
And if it is, do you need to be certified?
Yeah.
Some say yes, some say no, you know?
All right.
see, that's another thing with our industry. Nothing is really regulated in terms of that.
Yeah.
As I mentioned about raters or
Mhm.
psychometricians, you don't technically have to be certified in that. But so it's a weird industry, that we're
Mhm.
in, and you just kind of have to go with it. That's for
Yeah.
like the better word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
What else do we have, Sandra? Have we come to the end?
Well, I'll just, I wanted to tell everybody, both you guys, again, or student. I mean, luckily you just got a job. I mean, she just recently got a job, and I'm kind of jealous a little bit.
And
To be
that's
honest.
through networking too that I got that job. And I also wanted to say that I met Dr. Fox
Mm.
through networking too.
One
And
of my
he
favorites.
and wrote
Yeah.
2 articles for Clinical Leader.
Oh, good.
So, and I'm working with Abby right now. We're trying to work on another. Sandra might help me work on another article. So,
Perfect.
see,
Perfect.
always doing something to keep motion,
Yeah.
keep us relevant. A
from a
course, an article, everything.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and Abby is my colleague, my partner in at Clinical Leader, and she's always looking for people to write, additional articles and guest columns and things like that. So that's a great point. And Dr. Fox has been a big advocate of us over the
Yeah.
years, and just helps out a lot with. He was part of the original Save Our Sites,
Oh, synchronization. Yeah.
conference with Dan Safair and Brad Hightower and those guys, and that's just a matter of um, following the right people, right? And getting
Definitely.
that networking isn't just what we're doing. It's also, connecting with the right people on LinkedIn is a big thing, I
Yeah.
think, in this industry because
Oh,
like
yeah.
Sandra, you said it, it's kind of small, and so if you start following the right people and you start learning more about, oh, this is happening and that's happening,
Mhm.
I think that's going to help you just with that institutional knowledge that you'll have about the industry. So when you do go on to those video calls and those interviews, you're going to know a little bit more than just whatever your past experience has been. So great point. Yeah.
And Brad Hightower has the Note to File podcast
Right.
too. So if you're
Right.
the podcast, there you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Gary, and granted these transitions are tough, but conversations like this do remind us that, community is strong and strategies, like this, are to help us move forward and stay connected and keep learning. And, it's all we can do. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, we'll see you
Listen
on
to
the
what
next
we said.
episode.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Listen to what he said and watch our next episode. Yeah, right. That's a good way to end it. Yeah, you're right.
Fox, he also has a podcast, CRPN Network,
Does.
where you have to learn the financials of clinical research, where that's a big thing when you're doing a study and you're not getting paid on time,
Yeah.
especially if you're a research site, and you're not getting paid and you
Right.
really need to get paid. Well, everybody needs to get paid, but obviously a site, that's what you're banking on. So it
Yeah.
really has to be in your contract. You need to know how to negotiate a contract. There's people to talk to that know how to do that. There's courses on how to learn contracting, budgeting, and clinical research. All those things would help anybody.
Yeah, and that
in
role
that
at
industry.
CRC covers so much, right? So you may be involved with that stuff, so you're right. Dr. Fox is a good one to follow. Brad Hightower, Dan Fair,
Yeah.
those are, all those
Yeah,
folks.
yeah.
Nicole
Dan.
Palmer, we're giving
yeah.
everybody the
But
shout
why
outs.
would it do this? 'Cause I don't
We're giving them all kudos. Yep.
that
But those are all great people to follow. And your magazine's great. Your magazine has tons of articles. Every time we
Yes.
give a new thing, just tons. Even back issues. I go to back issues and read back time articles.
Good.
You know?
Oh, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yep.
Well, what I was gonna say is that, because that's why we have to, stay connected, and
Mhm.
things like this. And, you just got to keep learning and just see what happens on the, next side or what that with people like, how about you, Dick? What is it on the other side? You get on the what? I don't
Yeah.
know. Never mind.
That's all right.
Are you thinking the far side? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
I'd say
he's
Anyway,
we probably covered a heck of a lot today,
okay.
and there was a lot to take away. So I'm going to thank both of you, Sandra and Susan. Thank you for being here with us today. And like Sandra said, we will have some more episodes coming out. So watch for those. And you know how you'll find out about those? We'll promote them on LinkedIn. We'll tell people about it. We'll put it on
YouTube. Don't forget
Yeah.
YouTube. We'll
And-
do it on
and-
YouTube.
It'll be on our YouTube channel also. So thank you all and appreciate you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.